Book 1, Chapters 4 through 8 of On War. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Timothy Ferguson. On War by Carl von Clausewitz, translated by Colonel J. Graham. Book 1, Chapter 4 of Danger in War. Usually, before we have learnt what danger really is, we form an idea of it which is rather attractive than repulsive. In the intoxication of enthusiasm to fall upon the enemy at the charge. Who cares then about bullets and men falling? To throw oneself, blinded by excitement for a moment against cold death, uncertain whether we or another shall escape him. And all this close to the golden gate of victory, close to the rich fruit which ambition thirsts for. Can this be difficult? It will not be difficult, and still less will it appear so, but such moments, which, however, are not the work of a single pulse beat, as is supposed, but rather like doctors' draughts, must be taken diluted and spoilt by mixture with time, such moments, we say, are but few. Let us accompany the novice to the battlefield. As we approach, the thunder of the cannon, becoming plainer and plainer, is soon followed by the howling of shot, which attracts the attention of the inexperienced. Balls begin to strike the ground close to us, before and behind. We hasten to the hill, where stands the General and his numerous staff. Here the close striking of the cannon balls and the bursting of shells is so frequent that the seriousness of life makes itself visible through the youthful picture of imagination. Suddenly some one known to us falls. A shell strikes amongst the crowd and causes some involuntary movements. We begin to feel that we are no longer perfectly at ease and collected. Even the bravest is, at least, to some degree confused. Now, a step farther into the battle, which is raging before us like a scene in a theatre, we get to the nearest general of division. Here ball follows ball, and the noise of our own guns increases the confusion. From the general of division to the brigadier. He, a man of acknowledged bravery, keeps carefully behind a rising ground, a house or a tree, a sure sign of increasing danger. Grape rattles on the roofs of the houses and in the fields. Cannon balls howl over us, and plough the air in all directions, and soon there is a frequent whistling of musket balls. A step farther toward the troops, to that sturdy infantry which for hours has maintained its firmness under this heavy fire. Here the air is filled with the hissing of balls, which announce their proximity by a short, sharp noise, as they pass within an inch of the ear, the head, or the breast. To add to all this, compassion strikes the beating heart with pity at the sight of the maimed and fallen. The young soldier cannot reach any of these different strata of danger without feeling that the light of reason does not move here in the same medium, that it is not refracted in the same manner as in the speculative contemplation. Indeed, he must be a very extraordinary man who, under these impressions for the first time, does not lose the power of making any instantaneous decisions. It is true that habit soon blunts such impressions. In half an hour we begin to be more or less indifferent to all that is going on around us, but an ordinary character never attains to complete coolness and the natural elasticity of mind, and so we perceive that here again ordinary qualities will not suffice, a thing which gains truth the wider the sphere of activity which is to be filled. Enthusiastic, stoical, natural bravery, great ambition, or also long familiarity with danger, much of this there must be, if all the effects produced in this resistant medium are not to fall far short of that which, in the student's chamber, may appear only the ordinary standard. Danger in war belongs to its friction. A correct idea of its influence is necessary for truth of perception, and therefore it is brought under notice here. Chapter 5 of Bodily Exertion in War. If no one were allowed to pass an opinion on the events of war, except at a moment when he is benumbed by frost, sinking from heat and thirst, or dying with hunger and fatigue, we should certainly have fewer judgments correct objectively, but they would be so subjectively, at least, that is, they would contain in themselves the exact relation between the person giving the judgment and the object. We can perceive this by observing how modestly subdued, even spiritless and desponding, is the opinion passed upon the results of untoward events by those who have been eye-witnesses, but especially if they have been parties concerned. This is, according to our view, a criterion of the influence which bodily fatigue exercises, and of the allowance to be made for it in matters of opinion. Amongst the many things in War for which no tariff can be fixed, bodily effort may be specially reckoned. Provided there is no waste, it is a coefficient of all the forces, and no one can tell exactly to what extent it may be carried. But what is remarkable is, that just as only a strong arm enables the archer to stretch the bowstring to the utmost extent, so also in War it is only by means of a great directing spirit that we can expect the full power latent in the troops to be developed. For it is one thing if an army, in consequence of great misfortunes, surrounded with danger, falls all to pieces like a wall that has been thrown down, and can only find safety in the utmost exertion of its bodily strength. It is another thing entirely when a victorious army, drawn on by proud feelings only, is conducted at the will of its chief. The same effort which in one case might at most excite our pity, must in the other call forth our admiration, because it is much more difficult to sustain. By this comes to light for the inexperienced eye one of those things which put fetters in the dark, as it were, on the action of the mind, and wear out in secret the powers of the soul. Although here the question is strictly only respecting the supreme effort required by a commander from his army, by a leader from his followers, therefore of the spirit to demand it, and of the art of getting it, still the personal physical exertion of generals and of the chief commander must not be overlooked. Having brought the analysis of War conscientiously up to this point, we could not but take account also of the weight of this small remaining residue. We have spoken here of bodily effort, chiefly because, like danger, it belongs to the fundamental causes of friction, and because its indefinite quantity makes it like an elastic body, the friction of which is well known to be difficult to calculate. To check the abuse of these considerations, of such a survey of things which might aggravate the difficulties of War, nature has given our judgment a guide in our sensibilities, just as an individual cannot with advantage refer to his personal deficiencies if he is insulted and ill-treated, but may well do so if he has successfully repelled the affront, or fully revenged it, so no commander or army will lessen the impression of a disgraceful defeat by depicting the danger, the distress, the exertions, things which would immensely enhance the glory of a victory. Thus our feeling, which after all is only a higher kind of judgment, forbids us to do what seems an act of justice to which our judgment would be inclined. Chapter 6. Information in War. By the word information we denote all the knowledge which we have of the enemy and his country, therefore, in fact, the foundation of all our ideas and actions. Let us consider the nature of this foundation, its want of trustworthiness, its changefulness, and we shall soon feel what a dangerous edifice War is, how easily it may fall to pieces and bury us in its ruins. For although it is a maxim in all books that we should trust only certain information, that we must always be suspicious, that is only a miserable book comfort, belonging to that description of knowledge in which writers of systems and compendiums take refuge for want of anything better to say. Great part of the information obtained in War is contradictory, a still greater part is false, and by far the greatest part is of a doubtful character. What is required of an officer is a certain power of discrimination, which only knowledge of men and things and good judgment can give. The law of probability must be his guide. This is not a trifling difficulty, even in respect of the first plans, which can be formed in the chamber outside the real sphere of War,